You're listening to Three Kitchens Podcast, hosted by Aaron Walker and Heather Dyer. Tune in weekly to get inspired and make good food. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Three Kitchens Podcast. My name is Aaron Walker, and I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Heather Dyer. Oh, hello. We are getting into Christmas spirit around here.
Oh, yeah.
It is December. It is time to start thinking about parties. If you are someone who hosts, or maybe you don't regularly host a Christmas or holiday gathering, but you would like to, we have the guest to help us all wrap our minds around how do we organize the party, especially the food. We're really focusing on what are we feeding people? How are we prepping for it? How are we shopping for it? All the things.
How are we making it all come together? And because it is the beginning of December, you've got lots of time to gather up everything you need if you're going to be hosting this either around Christmas time or in the new year.
Yeah, exactly. We're not the people to give you advice on planning for hosting your holiday party. So we found someone who is the person to ask. She's a friend of mine. I've known her for a long time, been to many parties as a guest at her house, so I can vouch that she's very good at hosting a party. Her name is Lisa Baril. She's actually a professional facilitator.
And I think she's got the game plan for a party too.
Mm-hmm.
That's her. She knows how to make something come together from thought to execution. She's got it.
Yes. And she gave us some suggestions for a few quick, easy recipes that we could try and suggest to everybody. So we made a couple things.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about those cheese balls. Let's start there.
We talked about how we like a cheese ball, but when it's that big giant mass of cheese, it's a little bit intimidating to dig into. So she said, why not make them individual mini-sized cheese balls? And we thought this was a great idea. So in a bowl with my blender, 8 ounces or a full brick of lactose-free cream cheese, 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, half a teaspoon of onion flakes, half a teaspoon of lime juice, and then, I'm going to say about a tablespoon of diced olives.
Oh,
I feel like I got you with that one.
this is so fun because I would have no idea what was in there. And I'm
Right?
just like, everything you say, I'm like, oh, really?
Ooh. And then each of the balls that I made, I just used my little cookie scoop, which I know Heather's got one now.
I do.
And just scooped out little individual balls. And then I had 2 plates with shredded, finely grated Parmesan cheese. And one I had tahini spice sprinkled on, which is a nice red color. And the other one I had dill and Parmesan cheese. And so I just kind of rolled them in that and then popped them on a plate. And I saw this really cute thing when I was Googling through recipes online of having just a little pretzel stick stuck in them so that your guests can pick them up. Although it kind of got soggy in the middle, so...
Oh, they weren't soggy yet when I ate
really?
them.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just the later in the day ones. But yeah, they got a little bit soggy. So I'd say if you're going to do that, maybe put pretzel sticks on the side for people to serve them with, because mine were soggy by the end. And I was like, oh, soggy pretzel sticks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Really quick to make. They whipped up fast and I liked them.
I love these. I shared them with one of my kids who was not a fan of the dill, but he really loved the other ones. I loved both. I thought they were delicious. And I couldn't tell it. Could not name that olive. I did not know what that thing was. Yes. I did guess the tahini. I was like, oh, I couldn't remember the name of it, but I still have some because you gave me some. And I'm like, it's this, whatever this is called. That's what's on it. Yeah.
That's the tahini spice. Yeah. It's like a salty, limey, chili flake seasoning. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Those are really great. And I love how small they are.
I thought it was perfectly sized.
Yeah, really delicious.
That probably made about 25 little mini cheese balls.
That's good.
So, yeah. So what kind of balled item did you make for me?
And I was going to say, on the topic of balls,
Speaking of balls.
I made meatballs, which Lisa says are one of the most favorite things. They get eaten right up off of her buffet. It's a hot item. It's in your crock pot. So this is one that you can make a meatball from scratch, or you can buy the frozen meatballs that you just pop in your crock pot, put in the sauce, warm it up, and it's good to go, which is what I did. 80 to 90 balls in the package. They're tiny. These are like the cocktail size meatballs.
These are super bitty.
Yeah, they're so cute. They're like,
when I opened it up, I was like, oh, that's adorable.
I know.
I almost can't eat you.
They really are like a single bite. So the sauce that Lisa recommended to us was a mix of black currant jelly and Heinz chili sauce, which neither of us were familiar with.
I did see it at the store today.
It
was on the top shelf.
Like above the ketchup and stuff?
Yep.
Okay. Because we weren't familiar with it, did a little Googling and decided that we could mix ketchup with sriracha. So that's what I did because I had those things at home. So I ended up with a third cup of each ketchup and sriracha.
Okay.
And then I did the full jar of blackcurrant jelly.
No way.
Which was only a little bit more than the ketchup and sriracha together and the jam. Those are like 1-to-1. Wow. And then I just mixed them together, put that in the crock pot with those frozen meatballs, closed it up, turned it on for a couple of hours, and that was it.
And that was delicious.
Yeah, they're good. I think you could also use grape jelly.
That's probably a good idea.
I think that would also be good. Just, I would say, like, start maybe 1-to-1 with your chili sauce, and then just taste and see what you think if you want more of the jelly or more of the chili. Like, just go by taste on that one.
Yeah. Very good. The last thing that we made from Lisa's list of recommended items was the chocolate bark that she says every year everyone loves, everyone goes for, and I have to agree.
And you know what? I had never made chocolate bark before.
You wouldn't know because it looks pretty damn amazing.
It was my first time making it. I didn't know how thick, how much stuff do I put on top? But you made a pretty darn good chocolate bark.
Did you like what I did? One of my chocolates did not melt great. I think I got it too hot on the stove. You know how chocolate can almost like melt and be dry at the same time?
Too far. Yeah.
Yeah, I mistaked one of my chocolates for that. But I kind of hid it with the rest of them, so maybe you didn't notice.
I did not notice. It was good.
Yes. So I made 3 types of chocolate. So the first chocolate, I did 4 ounces of each type of chocolate. So I had a semi-sweet chocolate that I put cinnamon in. I had a semi-sweet chocolate that I put orange in. And then I had just a white chocolate that I just left as is. And so I melted it in a double boiler and then just kind of tossed it onto a baking sheet. You swirl it all around. You toss on the toppings. You give it a little smush smash. And it sits in your freezer. You break it up and you're done.
I love the pomegranate. It's such a nice little juicy pop.
I had it sitting on my counter and I was like, can you put pomegranate in bark? So I Googled it quickly and I came up with recipes and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I liked it. And it's a nice color too.
It's got the bright color. And then I saw lots of people had it with pistachio and I was like, dang it, I don't have pistachios. So I opened up my cupboard and I was like, ooh, sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. So I put the pumpkin seeds in to be my red and green to go with my Christmas theme.
Perfect.
But I see you did have the pistachios.
I did 2 kinds of bark because one was a total experiment. I asked my family, what do you like on chocolate? Like, what would you put on your chocolate bark? And my husband went Googling and he said, oh, did you know you can make matcha chocolate bark? And he loves matcha.
Yeah.
So he said, can you try something with matcha? So I just did white chocolate and I melted mine in the microwave. And then with a little bit of the white chocolate, I set aside and mixed about half a teaspoon of matcha powder into it. And then I put the white chocolate down. I drizzled the green matcha white chocolate mixture over top and kind of swirled it with a toothpick. And then I grated a little bit of orange zest on top.
I saw that.
Well, I don't consider white chocolate to be really chocolate. Do you? Like, it's not the same.
Okay, so I just Googled, is white chocolate chocolate? And it says, white chocolate is a confectionery typically made of sugar, milk, and cocoa butter, but no cocoa solids.
Okay, all right.
It has to have 20% cocoa butter. It's mostly just sugar.
Yeah. And that's to me what it tastes like. It doesn't really taste like chocolate. It was all a big experiment.
I would say it's an experiment that won. That's delicious.
It looks beautiful, like
Yeah.
the green and white. And I tried to keep it thin because personally I don't like a too thick bark where you have to kind of, really bite it off with your molars.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want anything too much that you're really chomping on. Yeah, no, it's really good though. I like that with the matcha and the orange.
Something different. And then I just made one that is a mix of semi-sweet and milk chocolate. And I put a little bit of ground cardamom in the chocolate.
Ooh,
I
okay.
don't know if the flavor came through. I think if I were to do it again, I would do a bit more of that. It has dates
Yes.
and pistachios. I wanted just regular pistachios, and I ended up the ones that were like chili in them. You still have to crack them out of the shells, but they've been flavored with chili. And I
Right.
was like, oh, well, they're going on. And then I just did a little bit of sea salt on top, and that was that.
That's delicious too. I love it. I think you can call yourself a successful chocolate bark creator now that you've done it.
Oh, yay.
You can't go wrong with that stuff.
You can't really mess it up.
Orange and chocolate, do they go together, Heather?
I think if it's real orange and small bit, like zest or something, then okay. It's probably not my first choice, but it's okay.
It's passable now.
Okay, well, that's enough from us, the people who
Yeah.
don't know how to throw a party. Let's continue on and hear from Lisa, who does know how to throw a party.
Yeah, she's got
Mhm.
some great tips. Keep that table full of food and go have fun. Visit with your friends, family, whoever you're hosting, and have a great holiday season.
Welcome to Three Kitchens Podcast, Lisa. We're very happy to have you here to talk about parties.
Who isn't happy to talk about parties?
I know, right? And it's that time of year.
It certainly is.
Mhm. So we have lots of things we want to talk about. Obviously, mainly food, party food, but there's a whole lot of things that go into hosting a party in your home.
And hosting a good party.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the
That's the
goal,
only
right?
kind I host.
Excellent.
Lisa and I go way back. So I've been to a few parties at Lisa's house, and that's why when we were talking about we should do something about hosting a party, I was like, I know who to call. And here you are.
I come from a long line of party planners. My mom hosted so many different kinds of parties when we were growing up. So I come by it naturally.
Oh, interesting. I was going to ask you. I feel like it's maybe something that does come naturally or doesn't to a person.
Yeah.
It does not come naturally to me at all.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure it does have something to do with what you saw growing up. I mean, everything was a party. Easter was a party, Grey Cup was a party, Christmas was a party. Definitely growing up with that probably has some influence. And then bigger family, maybe you just have more people, so you have a party even when you're not hosting a party. So maybe that all is part of it.
That makes a lot of sense because I have a very small family. So
We always had extended family parties. So just getting together was like a party. But personally, I don't like to host a party. I'm a great guest. Okay, so I've been thinking about this leading up to this chat. And I think because I get so fixated on stuff that's not important, like I'd be scrubbing my baseboards in advance, even though I know nobody's going to look at them, that I wouldn't actually enjoy myself. And I feel like a very good party host or hostess has fun at their party. You think so? I mean, Lisa, you always look like you're having fun.
Absolutely. And in fact, I have probably reduced or simplified a lot of things just so that I can have more fun and be less running around and not actually getting to hang with the guests. And I will say, I agree with you, Heather. There's been parties where I spent so over focused on every detail of everything. And then I was exhausted by the time the party started. And then during the party, running around like crazy and not getting a chance to just sit with people and talk with people. And so I think I've curated quite a bit and streamlined to make sure that I have an opportunity to enjoy the party too.
Totally. And you also have a very good partner to help you?
I do.
He's a good host too.
He is a good host. He's very personable in terms of the host itself. He's also very good at saying, okay, you know what? The baseboards aren't clean. It's not a big deal. Take a breath. And he's also very good at taking directions and instructions on the pre-planning and the pre-party and the pre-day. He just says, what's my list? And we go from there.
Yeah, that's good. So speaking of pre-party, maybe we should talk about planning.
Sure.
I feel like there's so much to...
I feel instantly overwhelmed.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Just the thought of planning a party, I'm already kind of quiet over here because I'm like, oh my God, so much work. I just won't do it.
It's a very good way to get your house clean. I will say that.
That's true. Anytime you have people over, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so, well, where do you start? If you're thinking, like, okay, so Christmas is coming up. If you're going to host a holiday party, where do you start?
I start with who? The guests. You know, the purpose is already there. The purpose is Christmas. And so I start with the who. And who do I want to bring together? I have done large parties where it's sort of free for all and there's 40 or 50 people in this house and it works. I did parties in smaller sort of groups and I thought about who is a good match. So I brought the people together with younger or sort of teenage children. And then my parents happened to be here and I knew that they would really enjoy some of my friends who are more seasoned, a little older, and who were willing to talk about politics and history and all the things that my parents wanted to talk about. And it just worked really well. So I think you really need to think about your guests, who's going to be there, and special considerations when there's kids or those other kinds of things.
Right. So let's get into food. How do you start a menu process? Like, okay, so you know the people obviously that you're inviting. You may not know like all their dietary restrictions or allergies or those kinds of things.
Right.
Do you ask?
I do ask, but at the same time, I put together a varied menu that pretty much has a little bit of everything. I, start with usually the proteins and sort of work around that. So, the Christmas is about the meatballs and the glaze and the shrimp and the Parmesan chicken wings. And then what else is going to feed that? So that might be a baked brie and veggies and hummus and definitely desserts at Christmas. So there's somebody can usually get something. And
Right.
Obviously, if you have a lot of dietary restrictions, it's probably going to be limited what you can eat. But usually people walk away. I'm Ukrainian and Polish. No one generally walks away hungry from my party. And I do also make the effort to put description cards by all the dishes so that people know. And usually people with severe allergies are very conscientious themselves.
So are you more in favor of doing the smaller snacky type foods, or
Yes.
do you host a big meal?
I'm more appetizers and snacky, but still substantial. You're still going to be able to eat and feel great after. That's just more my jam than cooking a huge turkey and a ham. And I'm not good at the timing of all the side dishes and so that just stresses me out. So I'd much rather do snacky kind of food. The other thing with that is that you can do some of it in advance. So Parmesan chicken wings, for example, I can cook all those up the day before and I'm just in a reheating situation the day of. It makes it easier to deal with sort of the compartmentalized. At a summer barbecue though, for example, but I'll do a simple protein. So seasoned chicken drumsticks, beef on a bun, a burger bar. That's probably a bigger meal situation. But again, I definitely don't do I'm going to cook all day a turkey or a ham, or I'd rather go visit my family who likes to do that.
Yeah, that's more for like a small gathering. I think smaller maybe. So how far in advance are you starting to prep? When do you do your like big grocery shop and starting to prep food?
Grocery shopping, probably about 2 weeks in advance, but it also depends on what deals are out there. Definitely, a good couple weeks in advance. For Christmas, if I'm baking, It may be longer than that because I may actually bake 2 to 3 weeks in advance and just have stuff ready to go in the freezer and the fridge, cookies,
Right.
squares, etc. So those can all be done weeks in advance, kind of thing. The actual food prep, I want it to be as fresh as possible. So most of it day before, morning of. And then if there is a salad, although I think you asked earlier about or talked about what didn't work, and the kale salad it's one of my favorites, but tends to not be that eaten. So, and it's again one of those things you have to do the day of because it needs to be fresh. So
Sometimes with a salad like that, people are worried they're going to have like something in their teeth. Little green,
yeah,
And you have to hold the plate and a fork.
yeah,
And it's maybe a little tougher to eat while you're standing and chit-chatting. And then where do you put your drink? And kind of, it's just harder to eat in this situation.
for sure.
It's easier to pop a meatball.
Totally.
Or a carrot stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even things like I do individual charcuteries in a little cup, the individual cheese balls. And that has probably come up a little bit more since COVID, a little less of the sharing everything and a little bit more of the individual things. So I have taken a bit of a twist on some of the dishes to make sure that they have that individual serving component.
I think that's a really good idea too when you're hosting for like younger children, just because smaller kids tend to put their hands on everything if everything's out there, whereas if you can just grab an individual serving and hand it to them, that's an easier way to dish it out.
Yeah, the kids really like the veggie hummus in the bottom or ranch dip if they're not into the hummus, and the raw veggies in the cup. They love that.
Yeah.
And the charcuterie, my kids really like that. We had that at your place last year, I think.
Yeah.
That's more time consuming for you though, isn't it? To put those together?
It is, but again, the prep work the day before is having all the individual components ready to go. So if there's something that needs to be sliced, like just to have them all ready to assemble so that it's easier. Same with when I do dessert board, and basically it's put the cookies and the squares in different containers and have everything ready, and then on the day of it, just all you're doing is assembling. And that's really what I try to do, is that I'm really assembling or reheating on the day of, as opposed to doing a bunch of cooking.
So are you mostly out of the kitchen then once the party starts?
Generally, you're refilling, but again, if you have it in the containers and ready to go in the fridge, you're pulling something out, quickly doing a refill, putting some more wings into the warming drawer so that you can kind of stay out of the kitchen. Except that sometimes that's where the party is. So then I'm actually...
I was going to say, except you're hanging out in there. As long as you're hanging out in there to visit and have fun and not constantly messing with your food table.
For sure.
Okay, are you a fan of dishes, like proper dishes, or are you doing paper?
I generally am a fan of the proper dishes, and I have a pile of mismatched cutlery. So I just keep all the mismatched cutlery and put it in a nice, pretty container, and people just use that. And then I have, for Christmas in particular, I have some festive smaller glass plates, and those work really well. I use bamboo plates in the summer, and even paper plates because they're all compostable. So that's manageable too.
Doesn't feel quite as wasteful as it used to when you just had to toss like when it was styrofoam or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm dating myself, but
okay, so when you were talking about the summer potluck, are you more prone to assign dishes or just let people bring what they want to bring? Or do you give them a category to fall into? Or how do you design a good potluck?
I've actually really loosened my reins on this over the years.
Okay.
Very much an assigner, and sometimes you'd end up with the assigned item and sometimes you wouldn't because someone said, oh, I didn't have time to make that, so I just brought some fruit. So at the end of the day, the assigning didn't always work anyway, and sometimes it'd be more stressful because then someone would call and say, oh, well, I was going to bring that, but now I can't bring that, can I bring this instead? And so now you're doing more follow-up and logistics and organizing. So I actually have almost completely loosened the reins, and it's worked out quite well, I will say. I just open the floodgates and say, okay, we've got this as a main and really looking for some salads and side dishes. I'll give some examples, and I've just found that it actually ends up going very well. We end up with a great variety, and I just found that it works out really well. You get this really nice variety of foods, and quite often different ethnic dishes, and so I've loosened the reins. Let it all go. Release.
Don't try to micromanage your own party.
Exactly.
Well, your party guests, I mean.
Honestly, it's very rare that someone comes to a party and is like, ugh, why didn't you have that kind of salad or that? Those people aren't getting an invite back. So
That's true. Who's
Be
going
a
to
good
complain?
guest.
and at the summer barbecues, I do have a very deadly sangria. So sometimes people just really aren't as concerned about what they're eating by the time they have a couple glasses of sangria. So
There you go.
Just drink. If you don't like the food, just drink.
yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're talking about drinks, if you're going to set up a bar and mix drinks,
Yeah.
that seems like a heavy burden on the hostess. That could be your whole night.
I would love to have like this beautiful cocktail party where, I'm serving espresso martinis and lemon drops and fresh margaritas. I actually do have a bit of a dream about that. The reality is that stopping to make a selection of drinks, like you would just never get to visit. And I mean, I don't have a big house, so to have sort of this whole separate bar area now, like as it is, I have a bar sort of spot, but so I lean towards definitely beer and wine, lots of non-alcoholic choices. For Christmas, it's eggnog. And if you want to put some rum, or it's a little Southern thing, Fireball whiskey, believe it or not, in with eggnog. It's quite tasty. A little cinnamon shot. It's very tasty. So I'll have all of those, and then some kind of mixed bigger drink that people can have. Kids love the punch, and adults sometimes will spike it, sometimes won't. And things like for the summer, it's a sangria, sort of a nice drink choice, but I'm not making all the individual drinks.
Mm-hmm. And that something like a punch is easy to top up when it's getting low. I like the idea of keeping the alcohol separate, so you can just add it to your glass if you like to spike your own drink, and then you don't have to worry about how much is in there, and does everybody know that it's in there?
Yeah, for sure. I will also put a cooler out on the deck out back if it's not too cold, and put the pops and the juices and a bunch of stuff in there. Again, it gives me a bit more space because I don't have a huge home, and I can pull just from a cooler in the back too.
That's a good idea. You do have quite a small space that you're entertaining in. I know you tend to have two zones, Lisa, usually. There's like the hot or savory foods in the kitchen on the island, and then you have your dining table where the desserts usually go. Yep. Do you recommend like having those separate? Do you think that works well?
Well, for me, I just don't have the room to have it kind of all in one room. And it's practical when you have a smaller space, but it also helps people move around and talk to one another as well.
I've always struggled with that because my house is divided up into many small rooms, as these older bungalows are. And you put like chairs and extra seating in the living room, but then like, how do you like get people to go in there? You put the food there.
Yep, there you go.
That's how you do it.
And don't have too much seating. I think people are fine to kind of stand and mingle and wander a little bit. If they find a chair and they sit, then some people will never get back out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But you also did some fun stuff for the kids, like little extra, like she had a movie and like extra treats, fun movie kind of treat.
Yeah. So one of the popular things for the kids, and I've done this a couple times, and some of the kids still talk about it. It's super simple. It's just like a candy bar for popcorn. So they get their bags of popcorn, and then you line up different kinds of gummies and chocolates and M&Ms, and they add to their bags. They just get little spoons and they just add all whatever little treats they want. And they are like over the moon about that.
Yeah, totally popular.
And then another thing, and the kids and the adults use this. This was a couple of years ago. I did a selfie wall. So I basically put up a poster board, a white poster board, and I loaded it up with ribbons and bows and I put it against my back door, and people were doing the selfies all, against the ribbon wall, and gets people talking. And
oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's cute.
How much effort do you put into the decorations?
Christmas, I put a fair amount of effort. I also take pictures so that I know what I liked last year and what I didn't like, and it makes it. And even the way I put stuff away, I kind of put stuff away in the way that was like, oh yeah, this was the dining area and this was the kitchen area.
Yeah, this is like some crazy kind of organization.
This is blowing my mind.
What can I say? I think just walking in, like I literally last year, and I think it was some of the kids and even some of the adults, they literally said, it feels like Christmas in here. And it wasn't that there's a huge expense, but it's like a lot of lights and it's pretty things and sparkly things and fresh boughs. I use a lot of that as well. For Christmas, I feel like it's really important that people walk in and it's a little magical. So I put the extra effort in, and I do stay away from over decoring where the food is, right? So you don't want people, oh, I got to reach over the 5-foot high Christmas balls and put aside the garland so I can get at that meatball. No, it's a nice runner or a nice tablecloth and some little tchotchkes, whether those little Christmas trees or little baby reindeers or just some of those kinds of things to brighten it up, keep it simple, but make it a little bit, special.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a little bit bent that way. I like curating things for Instagram and all those things. So I do have a bit of a bent that way, but I like it to feel a bit special. You're coming to a party. To me, it should feel a little bit special. And I like lights. Lights just make a difference. Even little mini lights on a table and even a little backyard table up for a summer barbecue. All of a sudden, lights and some fresh flowers and a lace tablecloth, and it kind of feels like, oh, this is something a little bit special, a little bit different.
Right.
You're very good at balancing it, I think.
Thank you.
I think if you are a person like Lisa who likes to host and decorate like this, over time, you collect little things, right?
Yeah.
And so then you've sort of, like you say, you've curated this sort of look and feel you want. But I think if you find an image that's like, wow, I wish my party looked like that, then just copy as much of it as you can within reason. Like seriously, like you don't have to come up with something brand new. You just copy the thing that you like as much as you can and take it as your inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Get inspiration from wherever you get inspiration from.
And I like the idea of using lights because that doesn't necessarily only apply to one time of the year. No. You can't really pull out your Christmas stockings for a summer barbecue, but if
you do
lights,
whatever you like.
You do what you do, but you can use those lights sort of anywhere and anytime depending on what you put with them. So that's a good way that it's reusable and more versatile. So I like that.
Yeah, it creates a little something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, should we take a quick little break and then talk a bit more in depth about food? Some recipes?
You've mentioned some really yummy recipes that I want to know more about.
Well, they might not be recipes. They might be just really simple, simpler than recipes.
That's okay.
2 thumbs up from me.
All right.
Hey listener, you are now well on your way to hosting the most epic of holiday house parties. And speaking of the holidays, we'll be here with you every step of the way with new content every Tuesday throughout the month of December on your favorite podcast player. So make sure you're subscribed. Maybe while you're in there, you could give us a few stars. It'd be the best Christmas gift you could give us. So thank you for listening and happy holidays.
Well, we're back. We're going to talk about these recipes, air quotes.
Yes. Yeah, please use the air quotes because I really wouldn't call them recipes.
Well, that's the beauty of it, though.
Well, I think that's kind of what you want. You don't want to be cooking something for a long period of time or sourcing lots of ingredients or burning yourself out doing all of that because hosting the party takes energy too. This is where I often get really excited about the food and I have all these recipes that I want to make. And then by the time everyone gets there, I'm just like, please eat it and don't talk to me.
Yeah, I'm dead on my feet.
And that's not a good place to be in. So I like the idea of something simpler.
And I think the other thing too is that, food is, as we know, pricier, a little bit pricier these days. So I think the more convoluted and complicated a recipe is, and it's got to be this special ingredient and that special ingredient, then you're also maybe spending more than you need to. And then that just adds to the stress. And so now it's like, oh, well, now the party, not only is it all this work, but now it's this really expensive thing. And so now I really don't want to do it.
Right.
And you don't want that. You don't want to go into debt to throw a party.
This
with
isn't your
friends.
wedding.
So we asked you what recipes, quote unquote, you suggest for that are the big winners at your party. Why don't you tell us about you've mentioned
Yeah.
Parmesan chicken wings a couple times. Tell us about those.
So Parmesan chicken wings, really easy. Get the pre-cut chicken wings. Don't even be cutting chicken wings. Just get them. They're already cut in large packages at Costco. You can get huge supplies of them or smaller supplies if you want to make a smaller recipe. And it's literally Italian dressing. Dip them in Italian dressing and then dip them in a mix of breadcrumbs and paprika. That's it. And bake them for like at 425 for, I don't know, it ends up being 25 minutes or something. That's it.
Where does the Parmesan come into it?
Oh, Parmesan is with the breadcrumbs and paprika.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes, it's sorry. Yes, they are Parmesan chicken wings. See, it's so simple. I even forget, the main ingredient. No. So that's your mix is your breadcrumbs, Parmesan and paprika. You get them moist with a little bit of Italian dressing and then there you go, done. And the meatballs are also a huge favorite. And frankly, I've made homemade meatballs, just your standard either sirloin or turkey meatballs. I like turkey meatballs. But when pressed for time, honestly, the M&M sirloin meatballs work very well. And it's a glaze of the Heinz chili sauce and red or black currant jelly or a mix of those. And make sure it's jelly, not jam, because it just is not the same kind of thing. It's supposed to be a bit of a glaze.
Okay.
Okay.
Is a bit challenging to find a jelly versus a jam, but once you find it, pick it up because you can keep it in your pantry forever. Heat that up together, the chili sauce and the jelly, and put your meatballs in there and then put it in the slow cooker. And people love the meatballs. And like I said, super simple. And the other favorite, of course, is the chocolate bark, which I literally have people request every year. Again, super, super simple. I don't even do a double boiler. I just melt 3 kinds of chocolate in the microwave, dark, semi-sweet, and white. And then you put half a cup or a cup of mixed, whatever your favorite dried fruit is. I use dried cherries or dried cranberries and raw almonds, and dump it into the mix, stir it up, and then plop it onto a wax paper lined cookie sheet. Alternate the dark and the semi and the white. Just plop it on there, take a fork, do your little patterns through it. In the fridge it goes, hardens, break it up into bark. Again, super, super simple. And then things like your individual charcuterie, right? It's like your olive and some kind of nice cheese and a couple of, the salami and the pepperoni and on toothpicks. And the same thing for a simple caprese salad. Olive, nice mozzarella, a cherry tomato, and a little piece of basil, fresh basil. Put it all together on a serving plate. It looks really pretty. Drizzle some balsamic glaze or balsamic on it. And again, good to go.
That's one of my favorites.
I really liked the idea of the mini cheese balls
Yeah.
because the big old ball of cheese is kind of intimidating to look at as a guest because sometimes it's hard to cut into it or serving it's not always the easiest. So making them into individual serving sizes is so smart.
Well, the thing is a couple things. So the whole, do we all want to be digging at that cheese ball together? And, back to kids don't know what to do with it. So they're in there with who knows, fingers or whatever. And the mini cheese ball, honestly, I can put it on my plate with some crackers and it's like the couple of meatballs and a Parmesan wing and I'm good. The other thing is that you can really work with whatever you roll it in. So dillweed, smoked paprika, sesame seeds, chopped pecans or walnuts. And it gives, now you have all this different color and texture as well. So then when I lay it out on a serving plate, it looks pretty. It's like all these, there's some red and green, at Christmas time. And so it actually looks good. The other, from a food wastage perspective, much better. Because if there's leftovers, I can freeze individual balls in the fridge and, bring them out for different things, as opposed to this half-eaten large cheese ball that you're like, well, what
do I do with this now? Yeah.
You just eat it for days and days until it's gone. That's what you're forced to do.
You open the fridge, oh, cheese ball again.
How does cheese ball taste with eggs? Oh, how does cheese ball taste with pasta? Yes, let's try the cheese ball with a pasta dish.
So sick of it.
Yeah.
You know what? I admit I've never made a cheese ball. I like a cheese ball. I've eaten them and I appreciate them, but in such small amounts that I've never thought to make one. What kind of cheese goes into a cheese ball?
I don't have the recipe in front of me.
Hmm.
I will admit that. And the recipe I like is from Company's Coming mini cookbook circa 1993. And it uses cheddar, shredded cheddar, and I believe some probably cream cheese.
Yeah, like to hold it together, right?
Yeah, yeah, and some spices but yeah, it's just your classic cheese ball. Honestly, the difference is made through what you're rolling it in. That's where you're getting
Mm.
the different flavors and textures.
When you wrote about this in the recipes you sent us and you had these mini cheese balls, I was like, that I am doing. Because I could make a small batch of those and just even
Totally.
have them for like smaller family functions
Yep.
or gatherings like that. So I really like this idea.
They
And you
could be
don't.
part of a charcuterie tray. They could be part of individual charcuterie on your skewer, right? Like they're just so much more
Yeah.
versatile.
Okay, I want to ask about this trend that we saw. I don't even know when it came around. I've not partaken, but I'm curious if you have done a butter board.
No, I have no desire. I love butter.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Let's be clear. I can't. No, no. I just have to say no.
Thank you.
A dessert board, yes. Dessert board, I like that idea, and like I said, I've incorporated that, but I have no interest in a butter board.
So what's your favorite things to put on a dessert board? Because
Mhm.
we both have a sweet tooth over here. So
I make a shortbread cookie. I make the chocolate crinkle, the
Mhm.
ones, the crackling
Yeah.
cookies. They kind of look nice. I tend to make just whatever square I feel like making. It could be one of I love butter tarts, but I don't want to make a butter tart. So sort of the butter tart square. I will
Yeah.
usually also put some nice wrapped chocolates or candy that, kind of adds a bit of a sparkle and it's just easy to throw on there. I will also add beautifully decorated Christmas cookies.
Mm.
I am not the piping queen. I do not have that skill. So I'll order some of those and just be able to put two or three. It just sort of perks it up to have these beautiful decorated Christmas cookies. And then some kind of fruit. It might be grapes, it might be some berries. That's generally. And then of course the chocolate bark is always a part of anything.
of course.
Everyone wants it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah,
have to have an Nanaimo bar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
And I would buy those. I wouldn't make them. I would just Eminem makes a great Nanaimo bar. There you go.
You heard it here, folks.
There you go.
Great tip.
And I'll buy the boxed mix.
And see, I'd make it from scratch, but that's just personal preference. Do you have a rule of thumb, like you have X number of people? So how do you know how much food to make? Like how many chicken wings do you
Yeah.
need if you have a house of, 25 guests or something?
So again, Ukrainian Polish, you're not going to leave my house hungry ever. But I'm also not wanting to waste a bunch of food either. So, I know what the popular items are. So I know that people are probably going to have 5 or 6 meatballs each, 3 to 4 chicken wings. It's much easier to do that with the snacky type food or the appetizer type food than, if you think about the full dinner. I find that just overwhelming. I don't know how big of a turkey to get for the 30 people.
Yeah.
But when I think about the individual items, I can actually sort of average that out. And then I'll just add probably 10% just because I'm me. So, and because my husband likes all the food too, and he'll just keep eating it the next few days anyway. So it won't
Well,
go
it's
to
kind of nice after a party. It's leftovers. You're not cooking for a couple days.
I'm less concerned because again, mini cheese balls, put some in the freezer if there's extra, right? Like I'm not, less concerned about that.
I mean, if you have extra meatballs and you don't feel like eating them
Yeah.
the day after or whatever, just pop them in the freezer. Same thing with chicken wings. You can warm
Yeah.
those up later. Yeah, so many logistics.
It is a lot of logistics. Apparently, I'm good at that.
I think you're good at it.
Yeah.
Okay, I did put a couple of rapid fire questions down. We haven't done one of those in a long time.
I really like these questions.
Now I'm feeling anxious.
No. Seriously. Don't
right.
put any thought into it. These should be super easy. Okay, what's your favorite party theme?
Christmas.
Give us an idea of a unique hostess gift.
I'm the classic. I'm sorry, I don't have unique. It's flowers. It's alcohol. It's a beautiful candle. It's something beautiful, something that you've probably gone to a little local store and just bought something pretty and beautiful.
Okay. And finally, what's the best moment of the party? Before people arrive, when the house is full and the party is hopping, when you finally get to sit down at the end of the night?
They're all great, but you know that when that buzz is in the room and everyone's having a great time and they're talking about, you know, the kids are coming in or someone's saying it feels so magical in here and you know, it's so lovely and that buzz and people are just, you know, the energy's there and people are talking to one another and filling their wine glasses. That's probably the best moment for me.
I think that's the best moment for everybody. Although there is something to be said for when, you know, when like the big kind of rush clears and it's like your besties who are kind of left and you can put your feet up on the coffee table and you can
you're grabbing that whole cheese ball with your fingers and just chowing down.
That is a good moment as well.
And having maybe a bit more of a intimate conversation as opposed to mingling. I don't know. There's something.
There's definitely something about that for sure. It's all good.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, this has been so much fun.
I'm so happy that you joined us because clearly Erin and I have nothing to offer our listeners about parties. But we know who to ask.
Absolutely. This is fun. It gets me excited to think about hosting something and doing something more with the season coming up now. We've got fresh snow on the ground. It kind of feels like it might be Christmas soon. So I feel like I'm starting to like turn over that clock in my head.
Just give it a go. Have 5 people over.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
10, maybe 10.
Do I know 10 people?
We'll come. Lisa and I will come.
Yeah, there you go. There's 2.
There's 2. Will you make us cheese balls? I know you want to make those cheese balls. Oh, you do.
There is no doubt about it. These cheese balls are happening.
Good. All right. Before we go, Lisa, can you tell our listeners where they might find you? You are not a party planner. You actually have business. You are doing things.
Yeah.
Why don't you promote a little bit of that?
Well, I'd love to promote a website. And as a person with a communication background, you think I'd have a good website. I don't. I haven't paid any attention to it for years. So you're best to find me if you want to find me on LinkedIn. I love curating, as I just said to you. So find me on Lisa Living Life 55 on Instagram, where I like to curate food and landscapes and cycling pictures and whatever else strikes my fancy. Yeah, and that's where you can find me.
We will put links in our show notes, so anyone who wants to go and find Lisa, there she'll be.
There I am.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website at threekitchenspodcast.com. Remember, when you like, follow, subscribe, and leave us a review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening.
I stand for non-abuse of cheese balls.